All right, welcome back to Agent Training. In this video, I'm going to be going through the last several tabs of AC2. In this one, I'm going to do the property section. So when we first pull up the property in BASIC, we're going to look and we're going to see this screen. And the IRPMs and the CLASP are how you discount business for new customers. The best way to communicate in general to your underwriter is by using the target premium. But in some cases, we will use CLASP and IRPMs. And they go up to a certain limit. They go up to 40, and it depends on certain states. But you don't want to use max credits because you don't want to push back on your underwriter too much. So sometimes you want to go to 15 or 10 or whatever. So I'll pick 10. Now the CLASP is pretty similar to the IRPMs. It is 15 credits for both the property and liability if you say yes. Now I said yes, but to get the CLASP credit, I have to answer several questions. To get these credits, you have to answer yes for all of them. And you'll just go through and fill out the rest of them. All right, so I've filled out all this information about the CLASP. I'll go to general info. This is where you select the property deductible, whatever value you would like, or whether or not they would like the terrorism form on their account. So after that, we're going to go to inland marine. So now this is the inland marine section. Now there's a few things to note about this section as opposed to the building and property section. This is a flexible coverage for valuables that are going to be moved constantly. And a common case of this is a contents policy where they will get a church in the box policy and store their materials in the trailer because obviously they don't have the building, so they will keep all their valuables such as sound equipment, whatever, in that box, and they'll want a specific value if something happens to it. Now this is different from building and property because building property is restricted to a specific location while inland marine is not. Now there's also another case if you have valuables such as Tiffany stained glass. These are things that maybe the church wants to make sure is getting a specific amount of coverage. So after that, we'll go to the theft section. All right, in the theft section, theft of money and securities only is a standard coverage of theft, and it covers all the cash at the facility as well as money in a safe. And this ranges from anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 depending on the congregation. The additional trip money days and the theft deductible, you won't be changing them often. And the final two thefts are by electronic means and building materials. If you have questions about these two, feel free to ask. Then finally, we're going to go to the options tab. This options tab is really important. You're not going to be changing the top three deductibles traditionally. We'll go down here, and ministry personal dishonesty is your embezzlement. And in this case, it's a very affordable coverage up to $45,000. But the problem is after $45,000, you need to fill out some extra additional questions. So next we'll move on into ordinance and law. This is where you choose what type of coverage of ordinance and law. And this is important coverage regarding a lot of the building codes and how much money they have to replace and demolish and whatnot. So this will kind of be on to you to learn this coverage, but this is where you can do it. And if you need additional amount of ordinance and law, if it's a huge account, feel free to ask somebody because there's an option of how to do so. Water damage limit is here. This is our flood coverage. It only goes up to $10,000. Sewer and drain coverage is here, and so is systems. Now, an example about when you want the systems or the sewer and drain. And traditionally, on every single account above about $1,500, you want to have both systems and sewer and drain coverage. So in some cases, in a contents policy, you may not want water damage limit and sewer and drain because all they're really looking for is a liability coverage. And you also may be able to option out the systems coverage. This will be a way to get down the contents policy to $600. So we're going to keep going down here and just continue to answer the questions. On the interior building damage and gutters downspout, you always want to have the same as policy TIV. The laboratory cleanup is necessary when you have a school on campus, but otherwise, if there's no church, it won't be asked. All right, so for extra expense limit and earnings and expense, Brotherhood now ropes them into the same bucket per se. But if you are adding money onto this, you're going to add into earnings and expense just because it's a little bit broader than extra expense. When looking at the building and personal property coverage part, the BCP 12B is a great coverage. It just offers a little more than BC 12. So it'd be good to have that on most of your policies. You can't change the amount of rented personal property of others, and you can just fill in the rest as you see fit.